Okay, so Signalis, what is it? It's dramatic, but very much awesome. Okay, so imagine this. Imagine that the original Resident Evil had an ungodly baby with Ghost in the Shell. The good one. Basically, what this means is that Signalis borrows horror elements from Resident Evil as well as its gorgeous attention to world and set design and details, and puzzles that overlap over a certain region, as well as the dystopian science fiction world of Ghost in the Shell. Both elements blend brilliantly to create a world that sucks you in and keeps you there, anxious and paranoid at every turn. The game prides itself in keeping you in the dark, metaphorically and literally. Not only is the universe complex and unexplained for a majority, but also your goal as a character. Why are you going through the metaphorical hell that is this mine? Why is this place even this hellish? What happens to the people here and why? The plot and world building is given through small text you find as well as images and posters decorating the scene, brilliantly echoing Cold War propaganda to help you understand the regime. Listen, okay? The game goes insane in many scenes, especially the ending, like the last 2 hours, and frankly I finished this, sat down and thought about it for a couple hours and realized I didn't understand shit. I got most of the broad strokes of the story, sure, but it isn't easy to understand at all. And I like that, very much so. It makes every cryptic scene more memorable and keeps you thinking about what anything means. Honestly, I would have never fully finished this game had I not googled how many endings are there in Signalis. After quote-unquote beating the game, to which I discovered that what I had believed to be the ending of the game was a fake ending, and what appeared to be start a new save file was actually me continuing my first save. I love that, and I was fascinated by the multiple endings of the game. More on that later. So yeah, you're stuck in this hellhole with the faint sounds of metal and static in the distance, traversing dark corridors, trying to find someone, and then you find something. These little creatures that vaguely resemble you and other replicants are all over the place, and the game eases you into the idea of these creatures with blood on the walls and sounds in the distance, as well as bullshit messages like mind the sound you make. Then just drops you into your first encounter, and afterwards they're just everywhere, simple as that. Just like the original Resident Evil, these monsters are just lining the corridors, and you have limited resources when it comes to self-defense, be it one-use taser batons or limited bullets for your measly pistol. In many games like Resident Evil 2, the bullet management isn't really bothersome in aspects of killing zombies because, well, there's so much availability and so many types of gun that it's fine to just blowing brains out left and right with minimal repercussions. Signalis makes you pray for more ammo, desperately. Monsters are harder to walk around and rarely die permanently without burning them. It makes you perfect the use of guns and ammo. Another important aspect from the Resident Evil style is the limited checkpoints and save areas make you dread dying and losing progress. See, while Resident Evil created this threat through the ink ribbons, limited items that you had to use in order to save, Signalis took another approach, which is putting each save point a year between each other. All of this works to weaponize your own brain to make the game engaging. It forces you to walk into a room and crawl around quietly in order to avoid alerting the horde. This is complemented perfectly by the need to simultaneously explore the environment and collect items and fight off enemies. This is all well and good, but the devs felt the need to constantly build upon this, and I am so grateful for it. New types of enemies, from weird bird creatures to Lovecraftian horrors, precisely to build upon the design basis of the game. Okay, so check this out. There's another type of enemy based on another replicant unit. The whole point is they like music, and when you see them and want to pass through, you have to tune your radio to their frequencies, while simultaneously walking away from other monsters and still exploring the room. Then the game doubles down and dims the light a little. Not only does this turn one of the advantages of the camera, which is having a wide view of everything in the room by making it dark, it also makes exploration harder by not allowing you to grab certain items without light, increasing the difficulty while expanding what they built rather than going against it. I've talked a lot about the way the game sets everything up and makes you explore its setting. All of this in a horror game is just setup. For fear you need the actual scare, and then they see you. The devs brilliantly managed to never hover around one place or idea for too long. Different areas look and act completely different, with new monsters, new guns, and new puzzles, all meshed together perfectly. It introduces new mechanics like radios, and sometimes flips the script entirely by shoving you into first-person sequences that serve to confuse you and create a surreal environment for the game. This all helps the pacing greatly. See, when you play Door Opening Simulator, everything seems slower and more boring in a sense, both because of the bigger areas and seemingly more backtracking due to the inventory system of Resident Evil. Meanwhile, Signalis has a very small inventory consisting of only 6 slots, but it does not feel at all like you need more. It's not a major inconvenience, it just forces you to be organized, and despite being a puzzle-oriented game, it doesn't drag in its pacing and bore the player. On the topic of puzzles, the game has them, and they're good, challenging, but not horseshit, and they're very enough to keep it interesting. I feel like they only falter the pacing a bit towards the end, but nothing too severe. Now, I've left my favorite aspect of the game for last, and that is its story and world. The world is built seamlessly, showing you these replicants and the regime they exist under, focused on order and work. dehumanizing not just the robots but also the unfortunate people living under it. The enemy and character design are aided perfectly by the little character sheets explaining the characteristics of different replicants, and then you see how those traits are twisted and messed up when they die and chase after you. You get a vague understanding of your character and the person she's looking for and their relationship, especially when the game gets more surreal. It ropes you in and makes you care for their relation just to taunt you and make you suffer emotionally. This game keeps you going with cryptic messages like "remember our promise," which is a recurring theme that doesn't make sense until you stop and think about it. I was not expecting this game to hit me emotionally, but then it hit me like a sledgehammer. It's tragic to see these replicants and the relations they've built be taken away, and seeing them lose everything and in the end shrug it off by stating it's fine, I'm just a replicant. Oof, dude, it just hurts and feels all sorts of wrong because you see how human they are despite how they're treated. The power of the story of this game is how it sets everything up perfectly. It's from the very beginning of it all, and you don't realize it, you don't see it coming. It builds upon itself perfectly so that you don't notice it. It creeps up on you and then in the end stabs you. I cried with this game. It had been a long time since any video game managed to make me cry, but this one genuinely hurt me with its ending, and I couldn't have been happier. Legitimately, it was awesome, dude. I mean, the game literally boots up with a message saying, "Oi, fuck it, some parts of this game can be seen as violent and cruel." What? Never in my life had I gotten such a warning message in a video game. What was I supposed to expect? All of these emotional little scenes oddly build upon the horror aspects by not only forcing you to walk through dark, scary environments, but also leaves you stressed at every corner for whatever the conscious people are going through. It fills you with existential dread, just to then finish you off with an actual proper scare. The tragedies and loss of each character you meet just feel real. A bit too real. It's uncomfortable. And leaves you with this yucky feeling of dread, both normal and existential. Then comes the ending, and what in the fuck, why would you do this to me? It's so sad, despite me barely understanding the plot, it just hurts. The game ended and I sat there looking at the credits roll like goddamn Patrick Bateman. It had been a while since a game left me just sitting there, but damn, it's worth it. I can't explain to you how the existential dread and fears that the game instills upon you with its characters perfectly complement the surreal horror of being chased around this hellhole. Especially towards the end when you see like a bit more insane creatures, to put it lightly. It just builds upon itself perfectly, and it all builds towards such a powerful ending. I cannot for the life of me recommend this game enough for everything it did brilliantly. You see, it took a style of game that is kind of not seen that well upon nowadays. That is the same style that the original Resident Evil had and a lot of old survival horror games relied upon. And it adapted this style and perfected it. It flew above every single conceivable roadblock it could have hit with the limitations of its own medium. And then everything just soared. The sound boomed and resonated brilliantly. The visuals kept you haunted and depressed, while the gameplay keeps you on edge, and finally the story motivates you and keeps you coming back to cry. Overall, fucking go ahead and give it a try. This game is a wonderful experience and one of my favorite games this year, or at least that I've played this year.